Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. So we'll chant the first verse because it is a prayer verse of the Drig-Drishya as well. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tadrishyam Driktu Manasam Drishyadi Vrittaya Sakshi Drigeva Natu Drishyate. Om. So we were seeing a text we missed last week. So just to refresh, the Seer scene analysis or the Drig-Drishya Viveka in Sanskrit. And we'd seen the first 5 verses that talk about relative seer and the seen. So there are relative seers depending on what is seen. And we've seen that in the first 5 verses, we saw the relative seers. The eyes are the relative seers when it comes to the Jagat, when it comes to this world, this universe. They become relative seers. We also saw the eyes themselves are seen. The conditions of the eyes themselves are known. Seen meaning known. The eyes themselves, the conditions are known. And when we say the eyes, we include all the other sense organs as well, all the organs of perception. The conditions of all my organs of perception are also known by me. So then the eyes become the seen. And the relative seer of the eyes becomes the mind. So we go one step further. The mind becomes the seer of the conditions of my sense powers, my sense organs. And the mind also becomes a relative seer. It is not the absolute seer. Why? Because the states of mind are also witnessed. I know the states of mind. I know when I'm sad. I know when I'm happy. I know when I'm moody. I know when I'm irritable. And because I know the states of mind, then the Shastra says there is a seer that can even witness the mind. A seer that knows the thoughts that occur in the mind. And in the 5th verse of this text, that seer is revealed fully. Drigeva natu drishyate. Beyond this seer, the ultimate seer, there is no other seer. So this is the absolute seer. There is only one absolute seer. All other seers are relative seers. And we saw this absolute seer is an independent entity. It is Sakshi, the eternal witness consciousness that gives existence to all the other seers and also the seen. It is the one entity that is independent reality. Everything else in this world is a dependent reality. It depends on its existence on Satyam Sakshi, the truth of this universe. That is the vision of our Upanishads, vision of the Rishis, the ultimate vision of our Shastra. And so this is what we have seen. Seer seen pair 1, just to reiterate, seer seen pair 1, eyes and sense organs, and the external world. That's pair 1. The seer seen pair 2 are the mind and the eyes, or the other sense organs as well. And the seer seen pair 3 is Sakshi, the witness consciousness, and the mind. So the Sakshi is the ultimate seer. Then the question will come, then how, okay, if everything is seen, yes, I can understand there are many objects that are seen. And I see a book like this, I see a book, I see a pot, I see many objects in this world. But I don't feel that I am invested in that pot or I am in that book. Whereas with the physical body is also perceived. But how come the physical body gets consciousness? What makes the physical body consciousness? If somebody pinches me, why do I feel hurt, even if this is an object? If somebody pinches a pot outside me, I don't get hurt, right? If somebody pinches somebody else's body, do I get hurt? No. Maybe I feel for that person, but I don't feel the pain when somebody hits me or pinches me. How come this particular object of knowledge, also object of knowledge, becomes conscious for me? And then we have beautiful verses here, the next few verses, about your human experience. In fact, you are a spiritual being having as I said this before, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being. And how does this body become alive? The next few verses talk about the way this body comes to life. He says, Chichaya veshato buddho bhanam distudvidastita eka hankritiranya syat antah karana rupini. So he's asking here, how do these 3 seers come about and how do they function? So there is a rule here. There's 3 seers, meaning the 3 seers we've seen in the previous verses. The relative seers. The eyes are relative seers to the world, right? Or the sense organs are relative seers to the world perceived. Then the mind is the relative seer when it comes to sense organs and their functions. Then the mind itself, we saw, becomes seen. So the mind is the seen by Sakshi, awareness. Awareness lends existence to the mind as well. So here, yat drishyam, there is a mantra here, yat drishyam, tat jadam, drishyatvat gatavat. Anything that is jadam or inert, insentient, is seen in life. See, this is a rule that is given in the Shastra. Anything that is inert, insentient, is seen, is perceived in life. But how can we say living beings are inert? How can we say my mother-in-law is inert? Definitely her nagging and everything is not inertness, it's not insentience. I always bring in mother-in-law because in any culture it's understood mother-in-law. Inert is there for living beings. It doesn't look inert. A living being, walking, talking living being or any other living being doesn't look inert to me. But Jadam, what is the idea of Jadam? Jadam means not conscious of itself or others. That is the definition of Jadam. And Chetana, which is sentient being or conscious being, are beings that respond to the external world. So if we talk about human beings, we call a live body conscious. A person is live because they're conscious and they respond to the external world. They respond through all the means of response they have. But have we ever questioned what is it I perceive actually? It is not the person I perceive. It is only the body. The physical body by itself. It is true. The mantra that Shastra gives is true. Whatever I perceive is jadam, is inert. Because the physical body, we know, when the physical body dies, what happens? There is no consciousness. We say it's dead. So, only there is something, life in that body that brings that physical body to consciousness and makes the physical body respond to the external world. So what I perceive is only inert matter. I actually don't perceive with my senses what the sukshma, what the subtle thing is
that lends existence to each being, that makes me talk, walk, see, hear, think, that enlivens all of us. So it is true what the Shastra says, any form by itself is just inert matter. The dead body cannot respond to anything outside, can it? We know. It cannot respond, transact with the world. That is why we start crying when somebody close to us dies. It is not the dead body we're crying for. What is it we're crying for? We say the departed. So even in the language, we say the departed ones. What is departed is what is being addressed. Something has departed from that physical form, which no longer allows the physical form to act in life, which no longer allows that physical form to react in life as well. So he's asking, how do the eyes, the mind become drig from one standpoint? What makes them sentient? What makes something conscious? What makes something come alive? And here, the threefold view of a human being is given. So the first view of a human being is the physical body, of course. It is called the gross body, stula shariram. The physical body is the first aspect of a human being. The second aspect that Shastra says of a human being is the subtle body, which is the mind. The mind is a bundle of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. It is the subtle body. The subtle body is the second aspect of a human being. And the final aspect of the human being is, of course, Atma, self-consciousness, Atma, Sakshi. This is called a trichotomous view of a human being. And number 1 and 2, the physical body and mind have no sentiency by themselves. This is the whole idea. They are inert. The physical body is inert. The mind itself is inert. Only the third aspect of a human being is self-luminous, Atma, self-revealing, as we've seen in the previous verse. And there is only one consciousness, Chitihi, that is all pervading in and through everything in existence, everything that we perceive. And this mind becomes conscious of everything. How is the human experience? What is the human experience? Because mind and body are matter alone. So here is where the Shastra brings in a special methodology called Pratibimbavada, or the reflection method. It is to understand how we work, how we function in life. And it also to understand how some things are jada, inert in this world, and some things are chetana, sentient, alive in this world. And this is where this inquiry actually begins. It's a very beautiful way of seeing the individual. So we've seen before, the mind, or the sukshma sharira, the subtle body, is called a reflecting medium, like a mirror. It has the ability to reflect consciousness. So consciousness, he says here, chitchaya aveshataha buddho. In the subtle body, chitchaya means literally the shadow of consciousness, but we have to understand it as the reflection of consciousness. Reflected consciousness also has to be understood properly as consciousness manifest. There's no reflection apart from that which is reflected. It is manifesting through the sukshma shariram. It manifests. It is just like the sun at night is not visible, right? We don't see the sun at night, but the effect of the sun still shining is witnessed by us. How? Through the presence of moonlight. The moonlight itself is proof that the sun is still shining. The proof is what? Moonlight doesn't have light on its own. It is only the sunlight that reflects off the moon, and the moon gives light to objects in this world. And all the objects, depending on how big the moon is, but it can reveal objects on the earth as well. So in the same way, what is being said is here that the Sakshi, Chaitanya, illumines the mind, shines in the mind, and it lights up all the thought forms in the mind. It has the ability to light up, illumine all the thought forms, and all the life experiences take place. Because the mind, again, illumines the senses. The senses go out, interact with the world, bring in data, and this is how I become a live, conscious being. Yatra yatra sukshma shariram tatra tatra jnanam chetanata, which means wherever there is a sukshma shariram, subtle body, there will be knowledge taking place in that being. That being is called chetana. It is called a live, conscious being. So even animals are included in this. Even seemingly inert objects like trees also have a sukshma sharira. They also have some level of sukshma which enlivens them. So that is, again, we will understand how they have sukshma as well. But the physical body, you have to understand, enjoys consciousness because of the, here he says, aveshataha, which literally means entry. But we have to understand entry properly. Entry of the subtle body. As soon as the subtle body on birth enters the baby's form, what happens? The baby starts crying. It comes alive. This is what, then the prarabdha starts. Your arrow has been shot. The karma has been shot. The moment the cry comes out, that's it, finished. You cannot finish your life until your prarabdha is finished. You have to go through all the experiences, pleasure and pain, until finally that particular lifetime karma is exhausted. And when the karma is exhausted, nothing can prevent your sukshma leaving your stula. Some people, there's stories of people surviving a plane crash. And, against all odds, they survive plane crash. But then the next week, they die of some other car accident. I've seen stories like that. So anything, when your time is to go, it is to go. That is when prarabdha finishes, the sukshma departs. And the sukshma shariram, the subtle body which enlivens the physical body, is due to your karma. It's a very complex network. It is due all the parentage that you're born into. You did not choose your parentage. When you pop out as a baby, you don't look into your mother's eyes. Do you remember? I chose you as my mother. No, we did not have a list. We did not have a list showing will be born, how will be born, what time will be born, under what conditions we will be born. Nobody has a list like that. So it is dependent on an order. And that order is called karma. So your DNA code also comes with you. That is your stamp of life, your DNA code. Your structure, body structure is also programmed. So very brilliantly, this order of Ishvara creates your individuality, your sukshma. Every sukshma sharira is an unique sukshma sharira. Just like your thumbprint is unique in your physical body, every sukshma subtle body is unique in every person. So we saw in the Tattva Bodha, the mind, sense organs of action and prana are all contained within this subtle body. And knowledge of external world is only possible because of this consciousness reflecting in the mind. This consciousness reflects through my mind like the moon reflecting sunlight, and that mind manifests consciousness and lights up the world. And this consciousness, how does everything become drik? So this is where we talk about borrowed consciousness. It is levels of borrowing. We saw this also before, but it's very interesting. As I said, Sakshi is the ultimate lender of consciousness. Sakshi lends consciousness, first of all, to the mind. The mind lends consciousness to your sense organs. And the knowledge is born. As soon as this process takes place, what is the knowledge? I am this body. I am this mind. I am these senses. And I do not pervade. The knowledge also is that I do not pervade more than my nails. It's written in the Upanishads that the Sukshma Shariram does not pervade further than your nails. That's why the individuality is contained within one particular form. Imagine, as I said, if we pervaded further than our body, we would be in a lot of trouble. If I pervaded your body as well, I would have all your problems as well. No, one body is enough to pervade with its own problems, body, mind, sense problems. This, I pervade until my fingertips, that's all I am. And beyond my fingertips, I am not. Beyond my fingertips, I don't exist. So, borrowed consciousness comes and goes, actually like waves that rise and falls. And how does consciousness get borrowed? Well, I used this example last time. The best example is frying pakoras, okay, or any bhajiyas, pakoras you can use. That is the best example to understand this. Fire is what? Fire's nature is heat and light. So what happens? The heat of fire heats up the pan. There's oil in the pan. It heats up that pan. The pan in turn heats up the oil, and then you put the pakoras in and they get fried, right? So does the heat belong to the pan? It does not. Does the heat belong to the oil? It does not. Does the heat belong to the pakoras? It does not. It belongs to fire, but it is borrowed. It is borrowed by the frying pan. It is borrowed by the oil, next in turn, and then it is borrowed by the pakoras. This is exactly what happens to the body, mind, senses as well. The mind borrows consciousness and illumines the sense powers, and the sensory system comes alive, and the senses come alive, and the sensory system illumines the whole body, becomes alive, whole body becomes sentient, and I start feeling all the sensations, heat, cold, all of these. And what happens, he'll explain as well, the ahankara, the I becomes identified with this particular physical mind-body complex, and it looks like one. So it's just like sunlight brings another example, sunlight brings all objects to light. It has the ability to reflect, especially of certain surfaces. Some surfaces it reflects more, like polished mirror, water, anything shiny, the image of the sun can be seen. So the mind is like that. It's like a polished surface. It can reflect the sunlight, and then from that mirror it reflects out and it lights up everything else in its view as well. So I feel all these sensations because I'm permeated by consciousness. Whole body is permeated by consciousness. This is exactly this idea, chitcha chaya veshato buddho. This light represents consciousness, sakshi chaitanya, witness consciousness, and this is how my activities of my mind are also illumined. So this he says avesha, he uses the word avesha, which means it is an as though entry. It is not really it enters. It is like an image entering a mirror. When the object is reflecting there, we have to understand it. When an object is reflecting, let's take light. When light is reflecting on a mirror, what happens? The light rays reflect on the mirror, and then the rays go out as well. So this is how this whole body becomes, he says, conscious of the external world. When somebody pinches me, it hurts. When it's a winter, cold in winter, it's cold, I feel the cold. Hot in summer, I feel the heat. The body responds, it becomes alive. It walks, talks, everything. But the idea is it is only borrowed consciousness. Borrowed consciousness comes and goes. How do we know it comes and goes? Because in deep sleep, when the mirror is taken away, where is anything to reflect? The reflector, the original is there, but it cannot reflect because the reflecting image is not there. The reflecting medium is no longer there. It resolved in sleep. That is where I know I cannot interact with the external world in sleep. That is what we call sleep. But I still live. I still pure awareness as Atma. I'm still there. And he says in this verse, one more very important thing. Now we go to the mental activity. He says, Bhanam distu dvidastita. All mental activity is twofold, he says. There is only two things that happen in everybody's mind. Dihi means the buddhi. Dihi means everything in the buddhi. It can mean all the thoughts put together. Dihi. But there's another thought that claims this dihi thought. What is that? It is the I thought. The I thought, ahankara. The ahankara claims these, all the rest of the thoughts that we see. We'll see how this happens. But normally we have to understand the mind in most models is divided into 4 thinking aspects, which is mind, manaha, the emotional aspect of thought, the desires, all of this includes manaha, intellect, buddhi, that makes decisions, that has a discriminative capacity. Buddhi is the second aspect. Then the I sense, the egoic sense, aham, I am this, I am that. That is the ego sense, ahankara. And finally, chittam, which is memory. So a lot of our thoughts are dependent on memory as well. But in this particular model, the author isolates the ego also as a thought. Your ego, ahankara, I, is also a thought. He divides the mind very beautifully into two thought forms. Ekahankritir anyasyat, he says. One of the categories is I sense, ahankara, which is the sense of doership. And that is the ahankara that claims all the other thought forms. The aham thought, the I thought, claims every other thought form as its own. We'll see how this works as well. So, ahankara is the karta, it is the doer that claims the phalam, the result of the knowledge from every other thought. Ahankara by itself, the I thought, is not a problem. It is not a problem at all. That is why we can never say, get rid of ego. You cannot get rid of ego. As long as you're alive, ego will be there because you have to think. The I has to interact with the world. So no one can get rid of ego. So he says here, antahkarana rupini. This is how antahkarana rupini means all the rest of the thoughts. The buddhi, chittam and manaha aspect of thoughts are included here. What are these thoughts? We've seen this. Thoughts of recollection, thoughts of confusion, doubt, emotion, thoughts of inquiry, reasoning, resolve. All of these are thought forms. And this is included under antahkarana. And this antahkarana, what happens? This antahkarana is claimed by aham. So the aham says, I am happy. Happiness is in the mind as a thought. Happiness is in the mind as a thought. It is just a thought that comes. It stays and it goes. But I claim that happiness thought. And I say what? I am happy. I claim the sadness thought. And what do I say? I am sad. I claim jealous thought. Jealous thought is in the mind. But the I thought claims the jealous thought and says, I am jealous. So this is what he's saying here. There are two thoughts in the mind at all times. The I thought and every other thought. The I thought and every other thought. And this karta, I, this I thought uses the mind to interact with the external world. It's the I thought that uses the mind to interact with the external world. Adi Shankara says very beautifully in his Brahma Sutra commentary, he says, this world of experience that we have as human beings is only two things. It is aham and idam, I and everything else. That's all we deal with, I and everything else. That is the world. Subject and object is this world. So this ahankara, it uses the antahkarana, the mind, and it says it deals with the external world. And I become what? When I say I am thinker, I am speaker, I am doer, I am runner, I won't say cooker because that could be a pressure cooker. I'm a cook. So any ER, generally ER that is added, that aham, that I is the ER. So very, very beautifully, now he's separated the mind into two thoughts. The aham and idam, this and I and everything else. But he is going to show now very, very wonderfully how this I thought is also false entity. It is an imposter in disguise. It is not you. It is not real. I thought, ahankara, is also a mental activity. He says, Chaya hankara yor aikyam tapta yaf pindavanmatam tadahankara tadatmyat dehaschetana tamaghat. Where is this feeling of I? It is in the mind. Everything takes place in the mind. When I talk about I don't feel the thought in my foot, do I? When I say I, where do I feel it? It is when we say it is in the mind. And when I say the mind, where is the mind in our Shastra? Generally, we say here, right? The brain is a golaka for thinking, generally. But when you say, I did this, where do you point to? You point to your heart. In fact, the location of the I thought is here spiritual heart. Spiritual heart is actually, they say, located on the right side of the chest. It is in the subtle body. Of course, there is no location really as such because the I thought pervades the whole body. But we always point here. We don't say, I did this, and people will think you're mad. I did this today, right? You don't point to your head. You say, I did this. That is why, because the thought is, there is a location given in deep sleep. This is where the I thought resolves into that particular place, the I thought. That's why automatically we point to our chest. We don't point to our head. We don't recognize these things. We do these things automatically, but Shastra says this is the reason why we do it, because we know that the seat of I is here. So my definition, my concept, my sense of individuality also takes place in the subtle body, in the mind, what we call mind. This I-ness pervades the whole body in the form of a thought form. How is it a thought form? Because the logic is, in deep sleep, where do you go? Have you ever questioned where you go in deep sleep? Where is this I sense in deep sleep? The I sense is no longer there in deep sleep. Where is your attachment? Where are your children in deep sleep? Where is your house in deep sleep? Where is your job? Where are your problems? There is absolutely nothing in deep sleep. Hopefully people get deep sleep to experience deep sleep, but that is, I'm sure one time in your life you'll have deep sleep to see that there is nothing existent in deep sleep. But you still continue in deep sleep. That is where you see the I. Without the I thought, you still exist. The I, ahankara, the ego you, that you think you are, resolves in deep sleep, but you still continue to exist. So the logic is, can you be that I? You are not that I. That I is also a thought you experience. Because in deep sleep, you experience the absence of I. You know I is not there, because when you wake up, you say, I did not know anything, right? When you wake up, somebody asks, what did you know in deep sleep? What did you see? I didn't know anything. Again, we question, if you were not there, present in deep sleep, how can you tell somebody you didn't know anything when you wake up? It is because you know, there is a knowledge, it is awareness, you are lighting up. It is like, very beautiful example Shastra gives. It is like I've said this before, but it's a very nice example. You can remember it. When you enter a dark room, right? When you enter a dark room, you don't see anything, right? You don't see anything. Your eyes are open and you come out and your friend said, what did you see? I didn't see anything. But the actual truth is it I didn't see anything? No. It is I saw the absence of everything. That is the fact. You see the absence of everything. In deep sleep, you witness the absence of thoughts. You witness the absence of I in deep sleep. There is no I there at all. No attachments, no problems. That is why ignorance is bliss. You're in the ignorance body there. Karana shariram. They say ignorance is bliss. It's very true. Because again, the sleep experience becomes very, very pleasurable because there's no problems you have to face. There's nothing. There's no connection. Nothing to the external world. So you experience the absence of the I thought in deep sleep. So knowing this and assimilating even this can negate all your suffering. If you assimilate this little, so you can be very objective in your life. How does it affect your life? Well, let's see how you can bring it into your life. Body, if it's an object of your knowledge, you're witnessing it. Body has illness. Body has pain. Body has sickness. That's the truth. Body has. But why do you have to lump it on the I? Why do you have to say, I am ill? I am sick. That is what we do, right? I am sick. I am ill. This is the identification that this text is trying to see that, is a wrong identification. It is identification with the physical body, taking the limitations of the physical body, not just the physical body. It is taking the limitations of the mind also onto I. All of the limitations of the mind, all the thoughts, limitations, the negative thoughts, thinking in the mind, I say I take it all on the I. But the real truth is, body has sickness, I still am. I still exist. Body is sick, I am. It is like a car. car broken down. But the driver if the car is broken down, does the driver get broken down? No, the driver is not touched by what happens to the car. At the same time, the driver goes to the garage and gets the car fixed, right? The same way, it is, one of our Swamijis in our Parampara said it very beautifully. He said, it is neighborize your problems. This is what this teaches you. Neighborize your problems. What does that mean? Well, if something happens to your neighbor, let's not say your immediate neighbor because you might be affected, but suppose 10 houses down the road, you find out they got coronavirus and they're not very well. Of course, you will be affected, but you will not get sleepless night over some neighbor you'd hardly know 10 doors down who has fallen ill, right? That's neighborizing your problems. Their problems are not going to become your problems. In the same way, your own body, mind, senses, although it's closest neighbor to you, is also a neighbor. It is not you. It cannot affect. The body, mind, sense problems cannot affect the I. That is the idea. You neighborize your problems. It is happening to the mind. Neighborize your mind. It is happening to the body. Neighborize your body. Then you'll find that I becoming more and more free. Sadness is also a thought form. It is just a thought. Sadness cannot really affect you if you see this space. It is a fact. Sadness comes in everybody's mind at some point. Definitely. Sorrow, sadness, depression. This can happen to anybody at any point in their life. But it is because of some karma that thoughts come in your mind. It is a karma. We have to accept there's a karma order to the mind. It is psychological order. Also Ishvara, as I said in today's meditation. It is Ishvara's order. My psychology is an order. Sadness is a vritti. It is a thought form. It is a fact. But it is not a problem. I make it a problem when I own up that sadness and I say, I am sad. I am sad. I am depressed. I am unhappy. When I own up the sadness, then immediately I connect I to the sadness thought and I claim the sadness and I suffer with the sadness. This is really, if you see this, you can disassociate yourself from the vrittis more and more with the knowledge. And this is what we call the end of all sorrow. That is knowledge. That a wise person, a realized person, a self-discovered person will have this ability, even if they thought sadness may come in their mind, depending on their karma, but they don't attach themselves to that thought. This is how we have our experiences in life. Ego gets identified with experiences in life like this. Whatever is happening outside, whatever is happening to the body, mind, senses, this body, mind, senses, what do I say? It is happening to me. I am suffering. I am going through this. That is exactly where we do the fundamental mix-up according to our scriptures. The seer 1, 2, everything. Seer 1, 2, 3 put together, the jiva, the individual, they're all mixed up. I don't know which is the real seer. I confuse the mind to be the only seer and everything else to be seen. But the mind itself is seen. Mind itself is seen. It is drishya. Drishya cannot affect drik. There is only drigevanat drishyate, only one chaitanyam. The drishya, the object of drik, object of knowledge, which we saw is jadam, inert, cannot affect the drik. So it is only a question of shifting your perspective of yourself in life. That is all it is. It's a cognitive shift that Vedanta, the study of Vedanta Shastra, it creates a cognitive shift in the mind. So you realize that anything that is known to you, any experience you go through, cannot be you. Reality is, even when you have a headache, pain is in this head. That is how objectively we should think. Pain is in this head. It is not, what mistake do I make? I say, my headache. I claim that pain. My headache, my sorrow, my sickness. Again, it is because I attach this I and mine to drishya that I suffer. So more and more I stop attaching to drishya. I see that drik is the only one there. Then I can remove myself, have an objective view to life. So it says here, the last thing he says, chaya hankara yor aikyam. How does this identification happen? There is oneness. This I sense, the ego sense, and manifest consciousness, there is oneness. They become as though one. And in the next verse, he's going to give a very beautiful example to explain how this oneness of this I sense and consciousness happen. And we can never separate them, because wherever the reflecting medium is there, which is the I sense, the I thought, the reflecting medium is there, consciousness will manifest. It's a law. If you put the light in front of a mirror, will it not reflect? It will. It has to reflect. So wherever there is a mirror, reflecting medium, there will have to be reflection of consciousness, will have to manifest. So we cannot get rid of the I sense. It is very natural for it to be there. It is like that mirror. The only time the mirror resolves is in deep sleep. There is no mirror, yet the original image, the consciousness still exists. The mirror is put flat. Consciousness cannot manifest. Light cannot shine, lighting up the body, mind, senses and this whole world. So we will leave it for this week. Next week, we will see how, very beautiful example that he gives to show how this oneness of I and consciousness happen, how I cannot rid myself of it. Hari Om. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Satgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.